Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar, How Generative AI is Transforming the Digital Workforce Landscape. We have had a little bit of an absence from webinars over the last month or so for the summer period. We're very happy to be back. We're very happy to be talking about a very interesting topic today. Before we get started, there are a couple of quick housekeeping things as always. First of all, we are recording the webinar. We are also live streaming the webinar on LinkedIn. So if you can't make it to the end, or if you would like to share it with any of your colleagues, you'll be receiving a link to the recording tomorrow that we publish on our YouTube page. Second of all, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, which you can fire in questions throughout today's discussion. We'll save the time for Q&A at the end of the discussion, about 10 minutes before we finish. If you have any questions at all that you'd like to ask our panelists, please feel free to fire them in there. And last but not least, we do have some polls. So I encourage you guys to vote on the polls as we go throughout today's discussion. They're going to help us shape up some of the questions that we've got planned to get through today. As I mentioned at the top, unfortunately, if you're joining on LinkedIn, you cannot vote on the polls. However, you can still follow them along as we go. Now, we have already sort of started some quick introductions before we went live, but I thought we might do the official introductions now that we are live. So, Jeff, would you like to get us started by just giving us a quick intro about yourself, please?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Jeff Wellstead. I am the founder and CEO of a very small consultancy, but powerful consultancy called Big Bear Partners. My focus for the last 20 years, based as an American based here in just outside London, has been working with small, fast growth tech and biotech companies, basically building out their entire people strategies from end to end. And typically that is a from scratch exercise. And the thing that's been really getting me excited lately, I've been following HR technology for a long time because it's been so desperately needed. And especially the last 5 years with the advent of AI, which HR presents an amazing use case for. I have just gone head over heels in terms of the application of this, because I, as an HR person, have always ever been really frustrated by the amount of administration, compliance, and governance that we've always ever had to deal with. And it's a nightmare. And that's not what we signed up for. If we signed up for that, we'd be traffic cops or handing out tickets or something like that. That's just not fun. For me, it's about how do we kind of very quickly accelerate ourselves as HR professionals into a much more strategic level of relevance with sort of our C-suite, right? And start to help guide the direction of companies and so forth. So I'm really excited about this period of our existence. And that's what I'm kind of laser focused on, and why I hammer on and on and on about this topic. So there you go.
Thank you. Yep, we have a lot to get through today, and I'm sure that we won't have enough time, but we'll do our best anyway. Yep. Thanks, Jeff, for the intro. Kuba, could you give us a quick few words about yourself, please?
Yeah, so my name is Jacob. I'm the CEO and founder of DevSkiller. As DevSkiller, we are focused on helping our customers to assess and grow their skills, mostly in the digital skills area, but not only. So usually when you start with this digital area, you show that it works, then everyone wants to, like, expand into other areas. So right now, basically I'm an education junkie, so I really like to learn new things, many different new things. And that's where we are helping our customers, and especially innovative, fast-growing companies that really need to adapt new skills to stay on the technical edge. And that's the experience that I gained for the last 12 years. And I'm happy to share that with today. My background is in IT. So I used to be a software developer, designer, and architect. And and right now are mostly focused on building teams, building companies, and building the skills strategy. So not the entire people strategy, only just a small piece of that related to skills. So yeah, thanks.
Yep. Thank you. And yes, we do hope to enlighten and educate today with today's session on generative AI, obviously one of the hottest topics out there at the moment. We have an awesome session planned. I should have mentioned at the very top as well, this is actually going to be one of 3 sessions we have today. So it's part of our Next Gen Workforce series. We have 3 webinars scheduled over the next 6 weeks or so. Jeff will be on a part of all 3 of them. So do keep an eye out on your inbox for those invitations. They'll be coming thick and fast over the next couple of weeks. So do keep an eye out for them. Okay, I am going to get us started by launching our first poll, which should be appearing on your screen right now. And of course, we're going to be talking about the impact of generative AI in today's session. So the question here is, where do you see the biggest impact of generative AI on your daily work? We've got a few options here: automating routine tasks, enhancing recruitment and candidate screening processes, improving employee engagement and communication, streamlining performance management and talent development, supporting workforce planning and skills assessments, or of course, if you're unsure, you can vote for unsure as well. I can see that people are raising hands, but we're going to save the Q&A for the end of the discussion. So if you have any questions, please fire them into the Q&A section. We'll get back to them later on in the discussion. Only about less than half of you have voted, so please continue to vote. And I can see people that are still joining us as we go. So thank you for joining us live. There's a poll on your screen. One of 3 polls that will be today. But yes, so I've got to be cognizant of time. So apologize for everybody that hasn't voted, but I'm going to end the poll, share the results. Speaking of the impact of generative AI, 58% automating routine tasks. We also have 33% enhancing recruitment and candidate screening processes. We also had some votes for streamlining performance management and talent development. So I'll stop sharing those poll results there. I'll also be sure to share these poll results with you guys after the webinar. It's going to lead us to our first question here about impact and continuing on from the poll there, Jeff. So the question here for you is, if you could share some real life examples of where you've seen the biggest impact of generative AI, particularly in the HR function.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A number of areas, actually. And I don't know if it's actually wise to kind of name names, but for the most part, it seems to be larger enterprises at the moment are experimenting with the use of generative AI. But there's a lot of reticence. There's still a lot of resistance, if you will, in terms of the HR teams kind of bringing it on. And I think a lot of that kind of currently sits with the concerns, real or unreal, with regard to kind of data privacy, with, potentially, these tools basically taking our IP and kind of like pulling it into their training data and things of that nature. And I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of solutions out there in terms of that, in addition to the regulation and those types of issues that are popping up left, right, and center, the EU being possibly the most prominent. There are some great kind of auditing tools that kind of build that transparency and provability that your system is safe. But where I am seeing AI suddenly take off primarily is with recruitment, right? Recruitment is sort of like the #1 use case. I think they're the first people, similar to sales and marketing. They're always ever the first people to adopt tools that make their lives easier. And the first aspect of that was automation. And then sort of the second aspect of that was basically putting together really powerful patterns together and looking for the signal within the noise, right? And basically trying to kind of hone in on and find those perfect candidates for the recruiters then to focus their human time chasing and sorting out. So that's primarily a key area. Having said that, the use cases, when you start to get it to a skills-based organization approach, where basically you're using sort of, if you will, I call it sort of the molecular level of data, and you're basically assigning those skills and a skills ontology, a relational, kind of relationship to other skills as well. You start to see some really fascinating patterns across, understanding how roles basically are structured and what they require. And then importantly, to be able to assess people against that suddenly creates a whole level of fascinating use cases. So for instance, in performance management, being able to do a very quick skills gap analysis to then very quickly pinpoint where those gaps are and immediately connect people to development, planning. Through learning management systems or mentorship or coaching or whatever is required. That is huge. To onboarding and creating a very personalized approach to how is it we get people up and running in the organization as quickly as possible. To, this notion of even promotion and pay, basically assigning levels of value in terms of certain skill sets and saying, this person has accumulated X amount of skills, provable skills, evidenced by their, kind of performance and behavior. They ought to be promoted or they ought to be paid in this way versus that way, that kind of thing. And of course, things like succession planning as well. Another powerful use case for AI. So I am seeing AI pop up everywhere across the entirety of the employee life cycle. And it's only just started.
Yep. In preparation for this webinar, I found an interesting statistic. It was from Coursera. 40% of global employees have been exposed to AI at work already. And obviously, probably some departments greater than others, as you mentioned, marketing and sales tend to lead the way, recruitment. But I'm sure that, I mean, definitely right now we've seen this extend beyond these times and very much more in the HR operations function, which thank you for that, which leads me to my second question, which is here for you, Kuba. Jeff touched on the points about where it can be applicable in the HR operations, but what are some of the potential benefits and challenges in doing so?
So basically, when you think about the challenges, or more like an impact for the HR operations, because that's like, you know, what's the goal. And basically, from my experience, people often try to use AI for, you know, let's say, doing better the things that they are already doing today. So like even in the poll that you shared, like most things were about, like, you know, automating the current role, and it's of course true, but I believe that when the AI is making the biggest impact for your daily work is when you start making things that you are not able to do today at all. And one of the things that is critical from my experience and my perspective is that, like, you know, HR professionals are basically dealing with the huge amounts of the data, right? So there is data ranging from employee performance metrics, recruitment analytics, etc. And normally we try to look at this data, maybe we pass it to some, like, you know, data analysts that are doing some magic to deal with that. But what's generative AI enabling HR professionals to do is that basically I can use ChatGPT or any other AI model to analyze this data for me. So it's like my personal data analyst, when I can say, okay, please analyze this data and look for some patterns. Maybe there are some patterns that I'm missing. And let's ignore what this data is about, just look at it from the perspective of the data. But also you can say, hey, dear ChatGPT, right now you're extremely experienced HR expert, and now look at this data from this perspective. So you can basically really become a data-driven company without building a huge business intelligence team, and you can enable data-driven decisions in the area like talent acquisition, employee engagement, etc. And with the ChatGPT, you can of course analyze like, you know, the really giant lakes of data. And one hint is that, of course, we don't want to upload this data to ChatGPT. It's not what we're going to do. So the only thing that you should do is to get like a small sample of the anonymized data, upload it to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, generate for me a Python code that I can execute on my personal computer and locally analyze this data and export it to the spreadsheet that I will open and navigate. So that's the first thing when we are doing that, and which we should, I believe, approach to really make the most of the generative AI. So just try to resolve problems that were not resolvable before that. And of course, as Jeff mentioned, like recruitment, so using all kinds of AI chatbots, virtual assistants, etc., it's important because we know that the candidate experience is crucial. So if we can have a system that will ask candidate, hey, when can we meet? And this time, okay, great, thank you very much for that. Please prepare this and this and this and this for your interview. Relax, it will take like 30 minutes. Do you have any questions? Yes, I would like to know how many people will attend this one. And of course, the AI-based chatbot or virtual assistant can be fed with all of these FAQs that we already have or procedures, and will answer this question like, hey, okay, thanks for this question, thanks for asking. There will be one person from the technical team that will lead the interview, and one person from HR is here to answer your questions, etc., etc. That's really boosting the candidate experience and engagement from the first touch with our company. So that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, and if
Yep.
I could just kind of quickly chime in too, like one of the other
Go for it.
fascinating kind of evolutions I'm seeing is, to your point, and Jacob, you basically brought this up around the use of chatbots. So that's starting to explode, right? Like Josh Bersin has like Galileo, and there's another one here in the UK called Harriet, another one called Atlas, and they're just starting to pop up all over the place. These are trainable chatbots, basically, where you can literally dump into these bots the entire corpus of knowledge in terms of everything an employee needs to know. You can also actually set them up as agents to actually go and perform tasks automatically for people after you integrate them with your HR systems and things of that nature. And what's fascinating about that is that it takes HR out of the base of the pyramid work stuff, like HR help desk stuff, administration, compliance, systemic process, and basically says, we've got that covered now. Not to say that you can always, you might occasionally need a human in the loop. You can do that as well, but the bulk of your time can now focus on the next level up the pyramid of prioritization and strategic relevance, which is, how do I help steer this company, based on systems like DevSkiller that we actually already have, where I can actually communicate to the board, look, I hear what you guys want to do commercially. Here's what the state of play is relative to the relative health and skill base of our company. So we can do X, Y, and Z, but A, B, and C going to be a bit of a stretch. Good news is I've got loads of data around who knows what about what, where they sit, and what they can do. And then we can basically work out a very quick plan to say, how can we take these people and apply them against these tasks and go get this stuff done? I can give you timelines. I can give you workforce plans. I can give you reskilling and upskilling details. I can do all that. That's where HR can have impact, right? And that to me is the most exciting aspect about the use of AI. So that's cool.
Yep. I mean, it leads us right into our next question, Jeff, which actually I want to stay with you about, where we talk about the application of AI and the impact it's going to have on the roles of HR professionals and the skill sets that they'll need to acquire or learn to go along. So the question here is, what new skill sets should professionals focus on developing as AI takes over more routine tasks in HR? And what advice can you give to these professionals to transition to more strategic roles within their organization?
Yeah, excellent question. And this is big, right? Because I think that's another difficulty that HR teams are having, based on the ones I've spoken to anyway, which is, if we give, this is always ever the concern, is that AI is going to take my job, right? Because it can do things smarter, faster, and much more cheaply than I can, 24/7. And so now I've just given away everything I was hired to do, or so I thought. And in truth, actually, think of it this way: you haven't been replaced, you've been freed. You've been freed to now use your brain and actually use something as powerful as generative AI and AI embedded tools to actually think faster in a more accelerated rate and a much larger kind of like presence. But to win in that space, I think the things that people need to start to focus on would be things like understanding data literacy and becoming more analytical in your thinking. I would also say commercial skills, right? To kind of understand what business your company is in and why does it exist and what is it hoping to do. You need to be plugged into the big focal targets, for the organization on a month by month, quarter by quarter, year by year basis. So you can then start to understand and reverse engineer. This is what they want to do. What is it going to take from a people perspective to get there? And now you're going to start having these capabilities because you're building a skills ontology. You're working with tools like DevSkiller. You now have a view inside arguably what was the most mysterious, unpredictable, and most expensive asset in your company. And you now can make sense of that asset. And I hate to refer to people as assets in that way. But I mean, that's always ever been a real mystery to us. And now basically you've become a scientist, a data scientist who kind of understands, who these people are, where they are, how do I kind of move them around? How do I improve their lives, their professional pathways, as well as the organization's pathways? Take courses in strategic thinking and learn business acumen. Change management is going to be huge because you're not just going to have to think and worry about AI and HR, right? AI is going to affect every aspect of your organization, and it's a people challenge. And you're going to need to be at the forefront to help drive the changes necessary to kind of adopt these new powerful tools, and then figure out what the people implications are on the back end. Don't ever forget that, you know, you are all about emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. This is your magic, and we can never lose that as a critical skill set. So definitely, you know, step up to that. Embrace technology. Don't run from it, right? There are loads of really fascinating, and happy to share them, loads of fascinating, you know, very easy to search databases around the types of technologies that are out there. DevSkiller, of course, I would put as one of the first things you need to do, aside from your core HR system, possibly an ATS system. But yeah, embrace this stuff, because a lot more is coming online, and it's good to kind of develop some literacy about it. And finally, you know, kind of like project management and leadership. You know, basically, you want to be able to kind of step up and manage these implementations and get people on board, get people testing and playing with things, so that your adaptability and adoptability goes really high. This isn't hard to find, by the way. This stuff is all over, like LinkedIn Learning, which these courses are pretty much free. Coursera, Udemy for Business, Pluralsight. I mean, there's a load of sites out there that can kind of like get you up to speed fast. So those would be sort of my touch points.
Yeah, you made some very interesting points there, but the people skills in addition to the technical skills, and not running from technology. I wanted to share another statistic I had here, which I found quite interesting, because I think the third part of it as well is a lot of people are put off and scared by the topic of generative AI just by itself, scared by it, don't understand it. Funnily enough, Coursera released their statistics. They have 35 courses on Gen AI in 2023, 570,000 people enrolled into those 35 courses. As of July 2024, over 2 million. So I think the pace of this thing is moving very quickly, but I think it's also telling to not be not to be afraid of the technology, but to embrace it and see how it can actually help your role, rather than sort of think that this is going to put me out of a job, basically. Because Google's already made some interesting points there about processing data and using it to get a Python code, etc., etc. There's plenty of applications where it can be used to actually enhance your
and it's
your role.
fun. You know, it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's easy. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
be a programmer. That's the thing, like Kuba talked about that, right? You just have to ask the machine in somewhat of a structured way, but it ain't hard, right? Hey, machine, this is who you are. Hey, machine, here's what I need. Hey, machine, can you present it to me in this way? And hey, machine, can you give me a particular tone or character? That's it, right? I mean, it's really simple to remember. And when you do that, oh my God, it feels like a bit like magic, you know, in terms of what comes out. But you always want to validate it and verify it, of course. But yeah, it's so much fun.
I think with the last summer we talked about prompt engineering is another thing that people can learn about as well, which is something very much
bingo,
a skill to learn right now. And as these models get more and more complex and more of them become available, because obviously there's new ones every day, basically. So, cool. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything here, or should we move along?
Yeah, a little bit. So I basically agree with all that Jeff said. I would highlight two things. One is that I believe that basically the business awareness. So HR staying closer to the business, understanding our competitive advantage, how we want to build it, how we want to like retain it, etc. That's a critical thing, because like as you Jeff mentioned, like I'm becoming less and less absorbed with my daily tasks, so I can focus on like more meta model of that, and like being closer to the business and thinking how with my HR actions I can really improve the business operations of the company. That's crucial, and that's always significant. So that's the one thing. And with this staying close to the technology, I believe that the things that we need to really develop is our collaboration with these tools. So how we can use these tools, because it's all about the tools. And you know, with this prompt engineering, there are some small hints that we can use. The one that is really a game changer for me is just and whenever you communicate with the AI tool like ChatGPT, Bart, or whatever, just add one sentence like, please ask me all the questions you need to be able to complete the task. And then it always asks you 10 or 20 different questions that, oh yeah, it's really important to mention that. And answering those questions really improves the responses from this ChatGPT significantly. It's really a game changer, just asking or allowing ChatGPT to ask you more questions to really understand and fill all of the gaps that are needed to complete the task. So that's the one thing that is really a very important skill for HR and for everyone basically these days. And the second one is that we remember that AI is pretty young technology. It acts like a junior. It acts like a junior developer. It makes a lot of mistakes, and you often need to fix it. I remember when one time I was analyzing and trying to cluster some data, and this data was clustered incorrectly by the AI. So I figured out that this and this and this record is wrong. So I say, hey, ChatGPT, this record is wrong. Can you please fix it? Say, yeah, I fix it. Okay, can you fix all other mistakes that you did like previously? Say, yeah, okay, no problem. I fixed 10 more stuff. So like, yeah, why didn't you do it correctly from the very beginning? But that's how AI works right now. So really like developing these skills is something that can really improve your work and the way you work and save you a lot of time to do more the things that you always wanted to do but never had time for them. So yeah, that's how it answers.
Very good point.
Yep, interesting. Thank you both very much for those answers there. I am going to launch our second poll for the day, because we're going to start to shift gears a little bit here. We've been touching on a little bit about skills ontologies and skills-based models and stuff like that. That's the next chapter of our conversation here. So that's going to bring us to our second poll, which should be appearing on your screen right now. And the question here is, how advanced is your organization in implementing a skills-based strategy? Option C, fully implemented or integrated into our HR processes, partially implemented with some initiatives underway in the planning stages, but not yet implemented, not currently a focus of our organization, or unsure. And it's going to, lead us into our next few questions here on skills ontologies, strategic workforce planning, a few different things we've got here that we're going to get planned.
Why we are not allowed to vote?
I don't know. I will look into that the next time around. I was trying to fix it today.
It's data integrity, man.
Data integrity, exactly.
Your
Yeah.
Data source.
Yeah.
We can't be skewing the results.
Well, one of the things we learned from experience is having the question before the poll, and then so everyone would just vote what was discussed in the question. So you always put the poll.
Right.
That gives us the best data integrity, I guess. We get a real accurate reflection then.
But then you can verify if people understood correctly. So that's like, it has
true. We could just simply ask, did you understand
like
the answers that was said?
Did you exit the webinar, or should you repeat it?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to end the poll. If you're just listening in, next poll, guys, there's one more. Just drop a vote in, because not everyone voted again, but that's okay. I'm going to share the results on the screen. We have 56% for in the planning stages, but not yet implemented. We also have 44% with partially implemented with some issues underway. Interestingly, no votes for fully implemented or not currently a focus. So it looks like we have most people somewhere in the midst of actually getting into the process of the skills-based strategy, or skills SBO, or however you want to call it. It does lead me to my next question, which is here for you, Cooper. So I'm going to stay with you. We're talking about skills ontologies here. So can you explain the difference between a skills ontology and a skills taxonomy, and how can companies effectively develop and implement a skills ontology tailored to their unique needs?
Okay, so the short answer is that skills taxonomy is more like a registry, and skill ontology is more like a map. And that's like, the short answer. And the longer answer is that there are different responsibilities for both things. And for example, in Devskiller, we implement both things. So we do have a skill taxonomy that is itself a skill ontology. So the most important stuff is skill taxonomies, that you have a tree of the skills, like you have different levels of granularity of the skills. So let's say that on the highest level, I have a cloud, right? On the lower level, I have Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud, Azure Cloud, etc. Below Google Cloud, I have databases, containers, some general knowledge, security, etc. And in containers, I have like Google Cloud Kubernetes engine. And why it's important? Because like as an employee, I usually almost always want to stay on the lowest level possible, because I really care about the skills that I have. I care only or mostly about my skills, and I want to use this tool to let's say boost my personal development, improve this stuff, etc. But as a company, I am almost never caring about the lowest level for any reporting, business intelligence, etc. Because as a company, you'll have 3,000 skills, so it's not possible to analyze it effectively. So as a company, of course, there are use cases where you're interested or you want to know who knows Google Kubernetes engine in general. But for your skills strategy, you are more interested in, for example, changes around the cloud area. So how many people have skills around the cloud area, or in if we are moving from one vendor to the other. So show me the changes for the last 6 months between Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure, right? So you want to use taxonomy to be able to aggregate data on different levels. C-level is interested in totally different levels than a team lead of a team of 5 people, right? So we want to have a possibility to aggregate that, and that's the skill taxonomy, and that's the responsibility for the skills taxonomy. Skill ontology, which is more like a graph or map of the skills, its responsibility is totally in different place. So if you think about the game, like for example, Civilization or any other like, you know, game when you build some character or a superhero, the important thing is that you are always following some path of development. You are not allowed to build ships in Civilization from day one. You need to develop a navigation before. To develop a navigation, you need to develop mathematics and writing. To develop writing, you need to develop some other things. And the same applies to the business skill. I'm not allowed to learn memory optimization in Java today. There is a set of prerequisites that I need to know to learn this skill. And there is a set of prerequisites to learn the prerequisites. And that's where you want to use a skill ontology, because it helps employees to develop, because I know that, okay, I learned skill X, which are the natural like next steps for me based on the skills that I have or I know so far. And from the company perspective, when you want to enter the new area, like you want to, I don't know, start doing some NLP processing. Of course, it's not like who can process that, because no one can for now if this skill is really emerging. But I want to look for people who are close to learning this skill because they already have most of the prerequisites that are required. So that's where we want to use the skill ontology. And related to the second part of your question, how to build it, the most critical thing is that you really need to have similar size of the skills in your taxonomy. You don't want to have a skill like I don't know, Google Cloud as a skill and Zoom webinars as the second skill, because then, like, you know, you learn Zoom webinars in like, I don't know, 30 minutes, right? And you learn Google Clouds in 30 months or something like this. So it really need to be like, you know, aligned. So that's the most critical thing. The second thing that we also learned, that really building a skill taxonomy is extremely easy way. I can enter any single company and build a skill taxonomy in one day, but it will be useless because it's hard to maintain it. And maintainability of the skill taxonomy is totally different story. And to have a skill taxonomy that can be reused not only today, but also tomorrow, in a week or something like this, it requires some extra steps. Like, for example, what we learn is that these three of the skills need to have the same depth all the time. So it's not good if you have different like levels. So for example, for digital skills, I have 10 layers of the taxonomy, and for business intelligence, I have 2. because then it's extremely hard to aggregate that and compare the things. So you are comparing apples to bananas and like, you know, and or even apple to cars often. So that's the problem. So that's what you need to do. So equal granularity or size of the skills and the same depth of the taxonomy for all areas. These are the two critical elements. The last but not least, remember that the skill taxonomy is not something that you can buy on the market, because it's important to include your internal skills and your internal knowledge to this taxonomy as well. When you think about, I don't know, software engineers in the bank, it's not that you hire someone and this person is like fully like, you know, performing from day one. Because of course it can be an extremely good C# developer, but he or she needs to understand all of the internal processes, software architecture, business things, compliance of this bank, etc. And often in complex organization, the like, you know, the internal skills is like a vast majority of the skills. If we think about the data analyst, knowing how to analyze the data is one thing, but understanding all of the company KPIs, data sets, resources, etc., it's a totally different story, and it usually takes longer to learn than just learning how to use ChatGPT to generate like pandas scripts or whatever. So yeah, that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, very interesting. I will keep us moving along, Jeff, because I've got to be conscious of time. But I'm gonna bring this back to you, and it's combining the topics of skills ontologies and strategic workforce planning, how the two go hand in hand. So the question here is, how can the implementation of a skills ontology assist in strategic workforce planning? Things like internal restructuring, upskilling, or reskilling initiatives, to name a few.
Yeah. So as you might have gathered, hearing from Jacob, this is complicated stuff. It can be complicated stuff, which has obviously been a hindrance for a lot of organizations to adopt a skills-based approach in terms of how they understand the talent within their organization. And the good news is, I'm happy to say, is that the building of skills ontologies is now a lot faster than it ever used to be, right? When companies like DevSkillr show up, they show up with under their belt 600,000 skill profiles, right? They're not starting from scratch. So you don't need to call McKinsey and bring a whole bunch of kids in with clipboards and spend millions and millions of dollars for the next 3 years building a skills taxonomy. Forget about building an ontology. They couldn't possibly, only to have it then published and be worthless because it's already out of date. What we're about to go through in the next, well, the rest of our lives is change like we've never seen it, right? The speed of it is going to be phenomenal. The depth of it is going to be mind-boggling. And it's going to feel like, whoa, I can't keep up, right? So I've been absorbing AI stuff now for 2 years, and I've only ever seen it, the changes, the modifications, the improvements happen faster and faster and faster. It's literally every day is what's going on, right? How is it we're meant to stay on top of that? Yes, some skills have a lot of lasting staying power. There's no doubt about that, especially people skills. But having said that, there's a lot of skills, technical skills especially, that basically are continuously changing. So those always ever have to be upgraded and so forth. Why an ontology? An ontology is the way life really works, right? If you look at nature, if you stare at a forest and you just think, oh, look, a bunch of trees and some grass and stuff growing around it. Oh, look, there's a pond. That is not a forest. If you get into a granular level, you're like, oh my God, look at all the insects, look at all the ecosystems, look at all the plants and how they're interacting. Look at how the different tree species are engaging with each other. Look at the pine nuts and debris falling and how that basically decays and turns into soil. You know, you start to get into some pretty hairy stuff, but that's life, right? Life is interconnected, and building a skills ontology gives you that level of granularity and detail, which is fantastic because you can use that, again, as sort of your molecular data level to do all sorts of things, right? To target the right people, to have incredible onboarding experiences, to set the right goals for them, to basically, you know, perform skills gap analysis and instantaneously give them development help and support. Have that information then kind of like used at a meta level to understand who knows what about what, where, and why is that important, and how can I best utilize people? How can I staff people on projects that are, prepared, ready to rock and roll and go make it happen. I used to do this stuff when I was in Arthur Andersen a million years ago. And it was down to me, a 20-year-old kid just out of university, to keep track of people, to keep track of people's, performance and skill attainment, and basically staff them on all sorts of different assignments. And what the hell did I know? Nothing. So how is that efficient, right? That's basically what a lot of companies still do today. It's all, a bit of, I think, Bob or Sue would be good for this. I'm not sure. We kind of need to make this stuff a science. And so that's basically why skills ontologies are really important. Great to have a list. That's a taxonomy, right? Of all the different skills, and you can kind of like categorize it and all that kind of stuff. But to see the interconnections of those things is magical, because you can do then so much with it. So anyway, that's what I'll say about that.
Yep. Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to bring us to our final poll, where we're going to kind of glue the topics together a little bit here about strategic workforce planning, skills ontologies, and where this all kind of comes into play when we talk about generative AI. But I am going to close this off with our final poll of the session first as well. Just before I do launch that, I did share a couple of resources in the chat there, one of which is an ebook on the topic of skills ontologies, and Jeff's actually just published a really great video to YouTube, which you can watch. I think it's about 10 or 11 minutes long. So they're both there for you to check out, both free to watch. Or read, shall I say. So I'm watching this final poll here on the benefits of working with generative AI. So question here is, what do you see as the most significant benefit of implementing generative AI in your workforce? Increase efficiency by automating repetitive tasks, enhance decision-making through data-driven insights, improved employee engagement and satisfaction, better alignment of skills with organizational needs, cost savings and resource optimization. Well, of course, I'm sure, again, we have in every poll, if we've struggled to enlighten you so far in today's session, that's completely fine as well. And then we are going to sign off with a couple of questions here on steps involved, a topic here about ROI, and then Outlook. We'll sign off on Outlook. Of course, we will have Q&A at the end. There aren't any questions in there right now, but if you have any questions, please fire them in there anytime. We'll get to them at the end. If something comes to you afterwards and you didn't feel like asking it during the session, please email us. hello@devskiller.com. It's very straightforward. You can fire your questions in there. We'll get back to you by email as well. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Now, we have some votes for a few, but with 71% increased efficiency by automating repetitive tasks, not too big of a surprise there, but also we have some votes for enhanced decision-making through data-driven insights and better alignment of skills with organizational needs. I would say if there's anything we've discussed today, it would probably be those three applications for generative AI. I think that's pretty much what we've discussed in the most depth during today's session. So I will stop sharing those results and close the poll there. And Kumar, I'm going to bring this question back to talking about the steps involved to transition to a skills-based organizational model. So for companies seeking to transition into a skills-based organization in response to the workforce changes driven by generative AI, what are the key steps involved, and what challenges should they be prepared to address?
Okay, so thanks for this question. I believe this question is crucial. And many companies have no idea where to start, so they're not starting at all, and they are postponing it because maybe they will learn something like out of the blue. So the first thing is that of course every company is different, because every company is starting in different point. Most of the companies are already having some things that they did previously, so we really need to remember about that. But basically, the first and the most important thing is that, of course, like you need to build this skill inventory. So taxonomy, preferably also ontology, to have the skills. And the second thing is, as you already have this ontology or use some existing one and just enhance it with your custom skills, you should let's say start building skills profiles for your company, because what you want to do is that I don't believe, to be honest, that you can create a company that is fully skill-based. There are no job positions. Everyone is just called an employee. and you know how to pay for these skills, etc., it's too early for that, unfortunately. So you need to build some job profiles. Of course, there won't be like 2,000 profiles, like you have 2,000 job positions. You will have closer to 200 profiles, so 10 times less than job position, but you need to have them. And then you are mapping skills for those profiles, and you are starting the onboarding. So we are starting mapping your company, your employees against that profile. So if you're adjusting, let's say, a head of marketing, then probably we won't have a profile that will be called the head of marketing, but just like a senior marketing specialist with some extra skill sets attached to you personally as Justin, because we want to develop you, not like a army of clones where everyone needs to be the same, because it's not how the world works. So that's it. And for this one, we are mapping people against those skills. So we know what you as Justin knows from the profile of the marketing expert. But you are not a head of marketing, you are Justin, head of the marketing, right? So you know more because you are Justin, right? So the next step is to map employee skills across the whole universe of the skills that we have. So if you know how to code in Python, or I as a software developer know how to use Photoshop, that's where I also want to share this knowledge, because the most important thing about the skill-based organization is that you are assigning the job to people based on their skills, not on their job position. So if you're looking for someone who can make great photos of the board, then probably in this team that we are sitting, I would be the best person. Not because I'm the CEO, not because I have an experience in the IT, but I'm passionate about photography and I really make good photos, right? I can take good photos. I can like retouch them in the Photoshop, in Capture One, etc. No one knows about that because, like, from Java developer, like how you can expect that. So that's about the skills-based operating model. You care about the skills. So why it's crucial? Because if you want to prepare a report, normally you go to the senior reporting specialist. If this person is busy, there won't be a report. But maybe you can go to the office assistant or office manager who is passionate about the data visualization, data storytelling, etc. And this person will be really committed to this job, this task, will make it perfectly, will focus on that, and will be happy that you gave this task to this person because that's what they love to do. And that's what it's about a skills-based operating model. So if you map people across their like job position skills or job profile skills and all the other skills, I would say it's a good moment to start. Of course, then we need to maintain that, etc. But building a skill ontology, taxonomy, creating skills profiles and mapping people across everything, that's a good start for the skills-based organization. Then you will start, of course, fostering the culture of the skills, implementing some tools regarding that, redesigning HR processes to be around the skills. So we want to have a feedback around the skills. We want to have a development processes around the skills, right? We want to have projects around the skills, mentoring projects around the skills, training programs around the skills. So you really need to like align this whole company with this approach, but knowing what's there with a good like will is already a good starting point for that.
Yep. I just wanted to add, thanks very much for that, Kuba. It only sprung to my mind as this question came up. We're actually featuring a report from Udemy in tomorrow's newsletter. We publish a weekly newsletter called Talent Tech Weekly. The report here is Workplace 2.0, the promise of the skills-based organization. I think there's lots of interesting statistics in there about the impact of the SBO model and stuff like that. But I think one important piece, which we should add to what you just said there, Kuba, about the steps that go into it, is also this top-down approach with all the way down to the individual employee. Because interestingly, in the report, they found a bit of a disparity when it comes to the tangible outcomes of skills-based organizations, because managers are observing this with a much higher percentage than individual employees, individual contributors, 74% to 63%. So it's all well and good to go to the effort of creating the taxonomy, building skills ontologies, implementing the job skill profiles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if that just happens at this level here and nothing comes down to the me as an employee, what's the point of doing it in the first place? The benefits need to be realized from the most important people in the organization, which are the employees. So that report, we've just summarized little tidbits from it in tomorrow's newsletter, so you can check that out. But the report is available online for free as well. So I think it's well worth a read on the topic. But
and
thank
Justin,
you.
if I could just jump in real
Yep.
quick, you just
Yep.
said something that's so uber important that it can't be passed, which is this is finally a revolution, not just for leadership, not just for line management, not just for HR in terms of a tool that they can use to kind of better their business. This is for employees, you know, in a huge way as well.
Yep. Yep.
And when you look at sort of the top 5 reasons that the best, most talented people in the world will give up a perfectly good, you know, job at a company that's well branded and understood, where they're being paid really well, and go join your company who is less well branded, and take a risk, right? And trying to figure out a way forward. Why do they join? They join because the work is cool. It's leading edge. It's good fun. The peers that they work alongside are egoless, really cool, interesting, wonderful people, and supportive. Line managers are coaches. They're not micromanagers. Leaders are inspirational, right? And they kind of drive a way forward. But importantly, the one reason that people join like this is because they know they're going to grow. They know they're going to develop. They know they're going to expand their professional and personal capabilities well beyond where they are today. And that is priceless. That's what attracts people. It's what keeps people. It's what motivates people. It's what gets people basically to bring everything to a particular challenge. So that's what's special about this as well.
Yep. Yep. Evident by the 75% of respondents of employees state that their company's already implemented at least one process. So this is very much a movement that we are finding ourselves in the early stages, admittedly, but it's becoming more and more widely accepted, more widely known, and it's only going to continue to grow from here for sure. We got to keep moving forward. We've only got a few minutes left. Jeff, I'm going to stay with you. We're going to talk a little bit about ROI here. So the question here is, what does the ROI look like for companies that have successfully implemented a workforce management platform? How quickly can they expect to see tangible benefits, and what metrics should they focus on to measure success?
Okay, that's a lot to cover in a very short period of time.
So it is. I apologize.
The ROI here, folks, is massive, right? You're trying to solve as an HR organization, how quickly can we get people here? Time to hire. Then what's it going to cost us to get people on board? That's, you know, cost per hire. Then you're talking about how quickly can we get them fully productive, right? That's speed to productivity. Usually it's 6 to 8 months. You want to like bring it right back down to 30 days, right? How quickly basically can we get people then to deliver to the goals that have been set for them to help basically overall productivity? That's basically productivity, right? How do we keep people motivated, interested, and engaged with the organization over time? That's about retention. Each one of these use cases alone will basically drive millions in cost savings, in efficiency, and potential revenue, right? In terms of the company. That's what we've always ever been trying to solve for, but we keep trying to solve for it in silos, and that makes zero sense. Is a better better recruitment system going to help? A smidge. Is an incredible employee value proposition going to attract more people? Probably, yeah. Is good branding, employer branding important? Yeah. But can you actually measure people jumping off of the ship that they're on and swimming over to your boat and jumping on board and say, the reason why they did that was XYZ? This is where the meat hits in terms of, wow, that's why I left this company. It's why I'm possibly even willing to get paid less, because I'm going to grow and develop, and I'm going to have this over the course of my lifetime and get promoted and everything else. So the ROI components are absolutely huge, and it's really important to kind of do it. I'd be happy to kind of run through any kind of an equation with you, but attrition alone is going to cost you 1.5 times that person's salary to replace, retrain, get everybody up to speed, get everybody on the desk resituated and comfortable that they're not doing 2 jobs instead of the one. It's hard work, and very quickly, bad attrition will ramp into the millions. That one thing alone, and your ability to replace those people, again, it racks up into the millions very, very quickly. A lot of this stuff is unseen, but trust me when I tell you, your CFO knows where it is, and it's unpleasant. So that's why tools like this are so critically important. And quite frankly, why I'm so excited about it. Okay, I mean it's a great tool. It's going to be a feel good tool. It's challenging to implement a little bit, but honestly, the amount that you will learn undertaking a process like this about your company, about the people in the company, about the direction of the company, importantly, the strategic value of the knowledge that you're going to attain in doing this is invaluable, right? It's irreplaceable. This is going to be the work of your life. And it's phenomenal. So that's largely what I'll say about that, because I know we're a little bit tight on time, but I think that this use case issue is really, really massive. This is why they hired you as well, not just to be strategic about the direction of the company, but how to save the company time, effort, and money, whilst at the same time propelling them forward and accelerating their ability to hit target.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on what Jeff said, because like the amount of saving and waste that you're doing without this approach is so huge that many companies say, no, it's not true. It can't be true. It can't be as bad as you said, but it is. There are Deloitte reports who are also showing that. So basically, like when you calculate the waste that Jeff mentioned for the company that is having 2,000 people or 5,000 people, it's like, 10% of their overall costs often. So they say, oh, it can't be as bad.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's true, then someone who is leading this company or HR of this company is really doing a bad work. So often these people think like that. So they say, okay, let's do not implement that, because improving it significantly will show to everyone in the C-level how bad we were previously. So that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it is massive. Yeah, it can very quickly, for larger enterprises, get into the hundreds of millions. I mean, the amount of waste. I mean, we see it every day. All of us do. So frustrating, so irritating. And to have all of that streamlined and managed much more efficiently is just, it's a thing of beauty.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. Yep. We are getting very close to time. I'm going to finish this off with this last question. I might go first to you, Kuba, then we'll go to Jeff. I'm going to sort of change the structure a little bit. We're talking about outlook and looking ahead. So I want to get one prediction. We can say two predictions maximum from both of you. What are your predictions for the impact of generative AI in workforce development over the next few years? Let's start with you, Kuba, then we'll bring it back to Jeff.
So what we already see even in our company is that AI is freeing people from some jobs that they are doing. So the companies can be much more effective and they can scale the business without scaling its back office in a linear way. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that really we can work smarter because you can, like with the AI, you can have like, Justin, even you, like, a team of 10 people or comparable to 10 people team that will be doing stuff for you. Of course, you need to be a supervisor, so you need to verify everything, but that's the significant change. So if you will learn how to use AI effectively, you will be much more effective as an employee, and you will be able to handle more stuff and more responsibilities that you are doing right now. So for the companies, it's really like enabling us to do much more with the same team.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kuba. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, no worries. I'll just throw in, a bit of a prediction here that might seem a bit scary, right? Because it needs to be, because it's true.
We love it.
All right. AI is definitely going to be able to replace some jobs. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I think Goldman Sachs or somebody basically recently released a study saying something like 800 million jobs globally, all right, are going to likely be affected, not necessarily eliminated, but changed so dramatically that there is going to be significant change in that space. So my advice to you guys is, as I often say, it's not AI per se that's going to replace you. It's going to be people who understand and use AI to their advantage that will absolutely replace you. Embrace this stuff. Have fun with it. Sign up to it. My God, it's 18 pounds a month to get an OpenAI, Chat GPT license. And oh my God, the things you can do inside there. You can create your own GPTs in a matter of 5 minutes. It's nothing. And it's mind-boggling to use. And it's fun. There are a load of tools out there that are going to start incorporating AI all throughout, right? Because we are in such a data-rich environment. We are begging right, for the use of AI. So I'm working with, companies that don't compete with DevSkiller, companies like Factorial HR, like Team Taylor, like a whole bunch of cool, there's another one called Uji.ai, UJJI, a small little company, right, that does this amazing kind of like, training and development stuff that you can just literally whip up, and AI basically helps you build the whole model and quizzes and all sorts of things. It's going to pop up everywhere. Love it. Play with it. Have fun. Get demo after demo after demo. I know you don't have a lot of time, but trust me when I tell you, you start to adopt tools like this, and you're going to find loads of time, right? You're going to be freed up. Not only that, you're going to start looking like a bloody hero, right? You're going to be like, oh my God, what is coming out of HR lately? Geez, like, I mean, cool tool after cool tool. It's just like completely changing the face of how it is we think about people and work with people and work with each other. So it's happening fast, right? There are some terrific databases out there to go and have a look that would be useful. One is called Stacked by a woman named Jessie Schofer, and she just on her own just kind of went out and found all the cool AI tools. DevSkiller's on that list of databases, and there's just some fascinating stuff that these things do that you didn't even think existed. So you're going to see a plethora of stuff. Don't put your head in the sand, please. Embrace this stuff. Take a bunch of courses on LinkedIn. Do it on the weekends. Do it at night. It's well worth it. And get smart about this stuff so you can speak the language and understand how these things work. But that's what I would say.
Yep. Very well put, and very, very good way to close off on today's session. We've already lost a few people, I can see, because they've probably got to get back to work themselves. So I will end it here for today's session. So first of all, I want to say thank you very much for everyone for joining us. For a very, very good session with both Jeff and Kuba, I'd like to thank as well. I'd like to remind everybody that we will be publishing the registration page for part 2 of this Next Gen Workforce series. That is going to take place on September 25th. It's on the topic of reskilling and upskilling in the digital age. We're going to sign up on the 3-part series on October 10th, which is called Future Skills in the Digital Era. So please keep an eye on your inbox for those invitations. As I mentioned at the top, we'll also be sharing the recording, so we'll be getting that tomorrow. And once again, just want to thank you all for joining, and thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Kuba, very much for your insight shared today. So take care and have a great rest of the day.
All right,
thank
guys.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.